All right, y'all, let's go to the movies. We're seeing the Bob Marley movie. I don't know nothing about Bob Marley. Nothing. I know his music when I hear it, but that's about it. So let's learn something today. All right, let's talk about it. So that was Bob Marley, One Love, directed by Ronaldo Marcus Green, stars Kingsley Benadir and Lashana Lynch. Lashana Lynch is everywhere, and I love that for her. She looks like she gives amazing hugs. So this is the Bob Marley biopic. We get a few flashbacks, his childhood, adolescence, when he meets his wife Rita, but most of this story takes place within a year. 1977 to 1978. We're bookended by two peace conferences. One that takes place around the time of the unaliving attempt of him and his wife and people in his home, and then another one when he comes back to Jamaica from Europe. Unlike the celluloid disappointment I saw yesterday, this one is definitely worth a ticket. It's not great, but it's definitely worth a ticket. The sound production alone makes it worth the ticket. What they do with the sound editing here, you're not going to get the same quality sitting in your living room. Is it a great movie? No. Before we get into what's not great, let's talk about Mr. Kingsley, the young man who plays Bob Marley. He's excellent. That's it. That's a tweet. Fun fact, he was one of the Kens in Barbie. I just learned that. The weaknesses in the script don't leave him much room to really expand and really build this character that is Bob Marley. But working with what he has, he gives a very subdued, emotional, very straightforward, almost transformative performance. He sells it. I think he saves this movie. He's worth watching. He gives you a reason to watch. Lashana Lynch as Rita. The problem I have with her, so to speak, is the same problem I had with Vanessa Kirby in Napoleon. It's not so much the problem with her, but it's a problem around her. And that it seems that her character is more important to the story than what this movie gives us. And I felt like if they had focused more on their relationship, and I felt the same way about Napoleon, had they focused more on Napoleon and Josephine's relationship and made that kind of a center, the movie would have been so much better. I kind of feel the same way here. She's somewhat of a side character, but it's very clear that who she was to him was so important and so vital, and we really don't get that at all. Now, I've only been to Jamaica once, Ocho Rio, if I remember correctly, on a cruise ship. Is it Carnival? It was on a cruise. So I just got that little sampling of Jamaica, but the island is gorgeous, what I saw of it. And this movie, the cinematography was not pretty enough. I don't know how the people in Jamaica feel about Jamaica, but for those of us outside of Jamaica, it looks like paradise. So I don't understand how you can have a movie set in paradise and the cinematography looks as bland as suburbia. This movie wasn't pretty enough. The biggest problem with this movie is the same problem that a lot of biopics have had lately. It's not as episodic as a lot of these more recent biopics, but it definitely lacks a story. There's no story. There's no center of gravity. We're just given a series of events. And I think they kind of ruined it in the very beginning because we get, little title cards telling us that Bob Marley did this big old peace concert and it changed his life forever. But there's no, climax in that big decision. There's nothing that's just, whoa, we can see this big shift in his life. It's very, what's the word? Anticlimactic. The entire movie is very anticlimactic. There's no rise and fall. There's no great conflict. It's just, this could have been a dramatized documentary and we wouldn't have noticed the difference. But the sound production, though. I'm not an expert on sound production or sound editing, but I'm a sucker for it. It's just something about sound and film that just Maybe it's because I love scary movies so much. Scary movies are really dependent on sound. Not counting the people who weren't portraying people from Jamaica, the entire movie is in Jamaican Standard English. There's nothing wrong with that. Subtitles would have been nice though. Thank God for the content creators on TikTok from Jamaica. If it weren't for y'all, I would have been completely lost because for the first 10-15 minutes, I didn't understand a word anybody was saying. It's not the accents that made it hard to understand for me. It was the grammar difference. They're speaking English. We're speaking the same language, but the grammatical difference is incredible. I love culture. I love how one language, the same language, can sound very different in different places because of culture. Somebody can say, what was it, patois? No, no, no. It was not patois. Two completely different things. Patois and Jamaican Standard English are two completely different things. Patois would have required subtitles. They would have given us subtitles for that. I was so proud of myself at one point because he said, oh, bombaclad. And I'm like, I know what that means. So the intense and intentional deep dive into a completely different culture makes this movie worth it for me. Yeah, there's no story here. I had issues with the cinematography. I felt like they could have honed in on certain aspects that were clearly vital to his story. But I love the sound production, I love the acting, and I just love being immersed in a culture very different from my own. Solid 5 out of 10. I enjoyed it, but it had issues.